From the high plains of the Midwest, I bid you good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever your time zone might be. My nod to the late and great Art Bell. I'm Keith Sharp.
And I'm G. Dressel.
And we welcome you to Life After Life, a paranormal webcast where we talk about the paranormal, UFOs, or the unexplained. And the biggest question of them all, what happens when we die? Stay tuned. Hey, hello, everybody.
Did it work?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I have to go back and watch it. No, I was telling him we had last week, and we said, "Hey, man, we did the perfect intro." And I went back to watch it, and it was like when I put our intro on, it was just the logo for like a minute and a half of nothing.
It's so great. I love that.
That's us, though.
That's the best. Yeah. I was so
good
impressed.
Thing we don't work at a nuclear warhead plant or something.
I was so impressed.
I was too, but it didn't work. How was your weekend, man?
Great. Just super busy. A couple more weekends and then I'm free.
You always say that.
No, for real.
And
for
then
real, for real,
I guarantee you'll go, "Oh man, I'm so busy right now."
Nope. Not this time. How was your weekend?
It was good. Didn't do a whole lot.
That's nice.
But that's good. Man.
Yeah.
I slept like a teenager, man. I slept till like 2:00 on Sunday, 2:30 or something like that. But man, I can't go to sleep, man. I stay up to 4:00. Even when I got to go up to work, I still stay up like 4. And just something I can't do. Let me get over to
Lurking in the night.
Okay.
Hey,
did I do that wrong?
Defense Diaries.
There it is.
Bob Motta.
Yeah, we got Bob Motta tonight.
Man.
The man. Just an honor to have this guy on.
It's such an honor.
From the Defense Diaries, is that correct?
Yep.
And I always say I'll put their logo, or I'll put the link down there, and I always forget, but I will get that done. You guys got to go check his. It's unbelievable.
Dude, most of them probably do. This guy's wildly popular.
He's got stuff he's got Gacy tapes no one's heard. I listened to all those. I just started the Anthony Garcia one. I got through 2, I think. And
that was an oddball, huh?
God, that guy was weird, dude. Well, we can ask Bob about it.
The man's on there.
Yeah. Look, I can see Bob down there like holding his head, like, good Lord, just get on with it. Will you guys?
Idiots.
These idiots. What am I doing on this show? Hey, man, what's up, buddy?
What did you do?
Hey, sorry, I didn't know you were talking to me, man. What's up, boys? How you doing?
Doing great, man. Thanks again for being on the show. This is awesome. We're someone of your caliber, man. This is awesome. Very cool.
My pleasure, gentlemen. My pleasure.
Hey, let me start this off. Here's one thing I do not understand. I do not understand the Alfred plea, and let me tell you why. So if I'm found guilty, then I can plea the Alfred plea and just walk out? I mean, how does that work?
No, basically what an Alfred plea is where you are admitting. So you plead guilty, but you're not saying that you did it. What you're saying is that you believe that the state has enough evidence that if they went to trial, they could get a conviction. So you're pleading guilty, and they usually it's not. So you don't get to choose it. The state offers it. So like with the West Memphis 3 case,
that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah. So those guys, it was an offer. It was a carrot. They're like, okay, well, we're going to let you out of jail, but you got to do an Alfred plea, where you're basically pleading guilty. You're not admitting to doing the crime, but you're acknowledging that we had enough evidence that if we went to a retrial, we'd be able to convict you again. So that's what it is. That's basically what an Alfred plea is.
Do you think those guys are guilty?
I don't. And I want the evidence tested, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, that's we talked about that the last time, is they were supposed to do that DNA evidence off of what they supposed was the weapon with the vacuum thing where they get the DNA.
I mean,
why did that not happen? I mean,
exactly. Like, why? It's a great fucking question. I have no idea why I did. Like, I can't think of any viable excuse why they wouldn't test for everybody's sake, not just those guys, but for the families.
Right.
If I'm the family, I'm going in there and I'm saying, I want the evidence tested. I want to know if those guys did it, the guys who pled guilty, or if justice wasn't served and there's a killer out there. You know, I mean, there's like that thing is, and it's Arkansas, and I'm not trying to cast shade on Arkansas, but come on, man. Like, if you have the opportunity to test evidence, why in the world wouldn't you test it? Like, to me, it's a cop out. Like, and the state should be supporting it. Anytime a prosecutor doesn't want to like find out the truth, that tells you all you need to know,
For
or if
sure.
they're afraid to find out the truth.
Yeah, it's not 1994.
Right, exactly, man.
You
It's
just
There
like,
was-
use that shit tested.
There were
like,
so many fuck ups on that. I mean, as far like the police work was, I mean, that was horrible. They had tunnel vision. They just
Totally.
wanted the conviction, man, and that was
totally.
it.
I
Put
mean,
these
it
kids
happens
away.
all the time, you know,
God,
all the time.
That's scary. And our justice system's supposed to be, something that we should believe in. And,
Yeah. It's,
you know,
yeah, look, man, it's got its warts, you know, in terms of kind of every other system that's out there. It's still the best of the bunch. But, you know, look, the problem is there's humans that are
Right.
involved with it.
for
You
sure.
know,
sure.
like in theory, it's a great concept. The problem is that you've got like just all human beings running the shit. So, you know, we're all flawed. You know, all of
Definitely.
us are
Right.
all of us are flawed. All of us are liars. You know, and it presents itself, you know, in a court of law. Would you hope? In the reality is, the majority of the time, the cops get it right. You know, it's like we hear about these cases where they don't. You know, I was, practicing a defense attorney for 20 plus years. I had my fair share of shit where I thought my guy was innocent and it didn't go my way, you know, but most of the time, if the cops have done their job properly, most criminals are not that smart. They typically leave the evidence that they need to get convicted. So, the percentage of like convictions of the right people is in the 90% range. You know what I mean? So it's not like it's like a 50-50 thing. Like where half the people that are getting convicted are innocent. But, one innocent man in prison is too much.
Sure. Yeah.
You know?
God, yeah.
For sure.
So did they going back to the West Memphis 3, was it the problem with the police not releasing that piece of evidence to them to test? I thought they agreed to it, didn't they?
Well, the police, like once the investigation's over, it's out of their hands. They don't have shit to say about it. It all shifts to the prosecution. You know, they are the ones who dictate whether or not they're going to allow for the testing. I mean, ultimately, it was the judge who ruled against the testing of the evidence. Now,
okay.
So they filed a motion to go in there and test the evidence, but it was tricky because the boys had entered into that Alford plea,
right?
And typically
the case closed to them,
right? Because they were doing it through what's called a PCRA, which is a Post-Conviction Relief Act petition. Now, that is always done with people that are still incarcerated. Okay, so it was a very unusual circumstance. But it was a challenging situation for the attorneys for the boys because there's not that many vehicles for them to get into court once they've already pled out and once they're free. You know what I mean? So, and that was the grounds the judge denied it on, was the fact that they didn't have standing in court. So that was the whole thing. He didn't even have to go to the true issue was, so he it was like a scapegoat type of thing, just hung his hat on what he could, without having to really get to the germane issue. So, but it's bullshit, man. That's what I'm saying. You have to have, if I'm the victim's families, I'm demanding, I'm going into court and I'm demanding to the judge. I'm saying, look, Your Honor, I want to know the truth. I want to know if it's these guys, fine. If it's somebody else, we deserve to know. Our kids, that are victims and no longer here, they deserve the justice. So, that's the way they should go.
And he's going to say, technically, Bob, they pled guilty.
Right. Well, that's what they said. I mean, that was the issue.
And think about, God, what a can of worms you'd be opening up on bad police work, and do you think, Bob, a lot of times when you come across cases like this and they don't want to release evidence or help anybody, is it because they're embarrassed because they know they did a shitty job and it'll be, everybody will know?
See, that's the thing, man. Kind of the misconception is that, the police are involved once it's out of their hands. Once a case shifts over to the prosecutor, the cops are minimal. If the thing goes to trial, and it depends on the type of case. So like you got Richard Allen, they arrested him. The PCA looks pretty thin on that. But all of the investigation that is going on right now that they have access to all of Allen's property, his car, his devices, all that shit happens post arrest, so they're going to come in if they can find. And like I said, with that case, I can tell you right now, if they don't come up with more evidence after post arrest,
Yeah.
they're in deep shit because that thing is paper thin. People keep saying he's the bridge guy. Well, I don't know that the bridge guy is the person that killed the girls. I just know that guy was the bridge guy was there, because I have not seen a video, and I've got a buddy, and I have a feeling it's CM over there. That kind of confirmed to me that that sound did in fact come from the video, that they're one and the same, as opposed to, because I've never seen them together. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You see the short clips of the film, and then separately you're hearing the sound. I need to hear and see the sound as one cohesive piece of audio video, because as far as I know, everybody's assuming it's the same thing. I don't know that it is until I see it in court where the defense has vetted it. So, and because look, Richard Allen admitted that he was there, and admitted is the wrong word. It's really, he volunteered. He was there that day, the same day that the girls went missing. So I don't know, that's going to be it's going to be an interesting case.
Do you think there's an excuse for God, I mean, it took another set of detectives to go back and find that when they first talked to this guy and he said, I was at the bridge, I was at the site at the same time the girls were, you would have thought, even if that was my buddy down from CVS and I knew him, I would think, we better look into this. How did that just boo?
Well, because it got buried, and like, I think what's going to end up happening, like I had read a story in a local paper, like probably about 6 days before the PCA had dropped. All right. And, but there were rumors going around, and then all of a sudden, and it was this story that reflected back on Richard Allen making a statement, like in this, and I can't remember if it was the Independent, it was a local paper to that area. And they were the only ones who ran the story. And they were the first ones that said that they had stationed this the conservation officer at like a supermarket. This wasn't like, in a small town like that, it's all hands on deck. They have 2 girls missing. Every human being with a badge is on duty at that point.
Yeah.
So, and they knew that there were a bunch of, like, it's just a highly populated area. There were 70 people on and around the bridge and the trail that day, So, it wasn't like he was the only dude there. There was, like, the kids didn't have school. It was relatively busy over there that day. So, they stationed people to take statements from people that were, they said, hey, do us a favor. If you were out there that on this day, just, we're going to have people stationed at various places. Go, let them know when you were there, what time you were there, what you were wearing, blah, 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 blah. And, and that's what he did. And I'll tell you, I was in court the last time, and when he walked in, dude's like 5'4".
Yeah, he looked like a small dude.
No, dude, I'm just telling you, I was sitting 5 feet away from him.
Wow.
He's a small dude. Like, and you cannot tell from that photo of Bridge Guy how big that dude is.
Right.
Because there's nothing for scale there. They're going to have to try to figure that out, because like saying he's wearing the same shit, every dude in rural Indiana wears Carhartt jackets, blue jeans, and boots, dude. Like, everyone. It's farm country. You know what I'm saying? It's rural Indiana. Everyone wears the same shit. Like, he's not wearing anything that anyone else wouldn't be wearing in that area. So that is not distinctive to me at all.
Right. And I think also as flimsy is, if you read that affidavit, it talks about, the 40 caliber, and it said subjective science, so that means a defense attorney can go, hey, there's no proof to this.
Right. Well, yeah, that was a CYA by them, because they know at this point what they used to call ballistics. It's basically junk science,
right?
In the sense that once they started automating, like, all guns are machine made now. Back in the old days when they were handcrafted and the barrels would have every barrel had unique defects because they were all handcrafted. They weren't coming out in uniform like they do now. So it had some more weight back then, because you literally could get unique markings, tool markings on, the bullets that were coming through that barrel. So Now that's not the case. Everything's uniform. I mean, can there occasionally be a defect? I suppose. But, on top of that, we're talking about this thing was unspent,
Right.
was injected,
right.
I mean, and they're trying to say that's why in the affidavit, they were very, very careful about the wording. They said, look, this is this guy's subjective opinion, just in the event that just gets torn apart at trial, which I assure you that it will.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right. It's a flimsy case at best. I mean, if he wants a speedy trial, how fast does that happen? If he goes,
if he would have made us so if he's in custody, at least in Illinois, it's 180 days. They have to bring you to trial. Cause that's what I said, it's like with the Garcia case, I always regretted not doing a speedy on that, but it was the same type of deal. Like when we got the discovery, we had essentially 12 years of discovery to go through, because the first case went cold in 2008 and they did a massive investigation, really, for the most part, left no stone unturned. So that was a huge amount of evidence for us to pour through. And then on top of that, you had the Brumback killing. So that was another massive amount of evidence that they had started to collect. So, it's not as easy to say, okay, well, we're going to push speedy trial, to screw the state over when, it's also possible that you're screwing yourself over because you simply don't have enough time to prepare for it. So, and that was on Garcia, man, they got so much of their evidence after he was in custody. It was crazy. It's but we were kind of handcuffed. It would have been a really tough call to do a speedy demand on that. And if Allen was going to do a speedy demand, they would have done it already. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
And we don't know all the evidence, right? I mean,
we don't know. We don't know. All we know is the state's narrative thus far, and this misconception that people think that they're holding back evidence in a PCA is just incorrect. What they hold back is bad evidence that doesn't work for them.
Gotcha.
And if they have maybe a potential second suspect, they would leave that out. But they're putting their best foot forward in an arrest warrant in that affidavit, because that is their first chance. And I'm talking about the prosecutors, not the cops.
Mm-hmm.
That was not drafted by police. That was drafted by the prosecutor. And, then of course the cop signs off on it. This is their case. This is in the prosecution's hands. Cops are not writing in a case like that where you are going to have the eyes of the world on you. Trust me, police officers are not writing those PCAs. Yeah. Cops write PCAs for a burglary, little cases where they're going in just to get a warrant. For massive high publicity cases, the prosecutor's office is always drafting those PCAs. And like I said, it is their opportunity to get their side of the narrative out first. You understand that? You get how big of a deal that is, because that's what we all digest, because that is just the state's story. That's how they interpret the facts. That doesn't mean that they are the facts. Right. That's the whole point of trials, man. That's what I'm always bitching about on my pod. I'm like, everyone needs to calm down and wait, because there's two sides to every story. There's going to be more evidence that comes in. And that's what I'm saying. Look, they are out there scouring Richard Allen's computers, devices, doing all that shit, talking to all kinds of people, trying to gather tons more evidence. Whether or not they get it, we'll find out. But I can guarantee you the defense is doing their investigation, and they're going to vet everything. And it's going to be a big issue for them that they shelved that thing for 5 years. Because whoever that, resource officer that he talked to on the day of or the day after, whenever it was, the person was in Delphi. We all knew that they released the bridge guy, because I think the bridge guy thing was released on the 15th or 16th, days after. So that person, theoretically, there's no way in the world that the person that took Allen's statement wouldn't have been like, oh, well, shit. I talked to a dude that said he was there that, said he was wearing it's inexplicable to me, how that got shelved for 5 years or something. Crazy about it, dude. Just common sense wise, you don't have to be a lawyer to figure out, how didn't the dude that took the report be like, yo, I don't know where the actual paper is, but I talked to a guy 3 days ago that said he was on the bridge and was kind of wearing the same shit. How did that not happen? I don't know. We'll see how.
Yeah, because at that time too, that the bridge guy wouldn't have known that Abby took that video, so he would think, there's no video of me on the bridge.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Murdaugh thing that's going on tonight. It's like I don't know if he was aware that Paul took that video.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that shit just broke today, man. So
I know. Well, before we get onto that, I just had one question about what you're saying about the prosecution putting their best foot forward because that sets the narrative.
Yeah.
So like if we're all looking at it though and we're saying this is flimsy, this doesn't look good, don't you think they would know that? Like, does that give you pause to think that there's other stuff, or like
no?
Like, why would they put a flimsy if they know the whole world's watching, right? Why would they even put a terrible foot forward then?
Because they had a huge amount of pressure to make an arrest.
Right.
5 years. Like whenever they unearthed that statement by Allen, putting him on the bridge, and then they made this connection, as tenuous as it is, with the 40, the 40 caliber casing, man. It was like they had to make a decision. Look, let's get him under arrest. We're gonna get a lot more information. If he's the guy, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out on his devices. We're gonna get all his IP shit. We're gonna find out if this guy was creeping on kids.
And we can only really do that if he's like arrested, right?
Right.
You can't just if you let him go, it's not like you have a free reign. It's kind of like the your case with Garcia.
Right.
Like once he was arrested, obviously all this evidence comes out because they have control of basically his entire life.
Yeah, totally. But like when you read the affidavit in Garcia, it reads much closer to the Idaho 4 affidavit, which when that dropped, after all of us had been looking at the Allen PCA, and then that thing drops, you're like, holy shit. This is what a PCA should look like. They fucking laid out the whole cake. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like if in Allen, if they had more evidence, it would have been in there.
Right. Gotcha.
There's no reason for them to hold it back, because I can go in as a defense attorney and attack that with a motion to quash the arrest, saying that they don't have enough fucking evidence.
Got it.
Understand that? That's the reality. People forget there's two sides.
That's like the first punch.
Oh, dude, and it's typically. It goes unparried, meaning that the defense doesn't get to say shit about it. In this case, the defense wrote that letter. They got it out before the gag came down.
Got it.
In Idaho,
how interesting of a
down
game
immediately, so the defense didn't get to say shit. You know what I mean? So
I'm a game guy, so that's why I'm like the legal system is always so interesting to me, because it is this back and forth.
It is a chess match.
Jeez,
no question about it.
So forensically going through a computer, how long does that take, Bob? Is that months and months and months? Or?
No, they'll get so first thing they do, they'll get his phone or phones, whatever you have, and there's this technology called Cellubrite, which is something. I've been reading recently that Apple has been doing things so that Cellubrite, which is an extraction program that was created. So basically you plug whatever phone you're trying to extract the information from, you run it into the Cellubrite machine, and then you have another cord that goes into a dummy phone, and it extracts everything, including everything that you deleted. So they did that in Garcia. So everything that you've ever, thought that you deleted on your phone, I got news for you. 98% of it is still there. Texts, pictures, all that shit, searches, all the shit that you think that you've deleted is not deleted off your hard drive. So that's what they do. So that's instantaneous. Now them pouring through, and putting it all together is a different story. It depends on how many guys they have working that angle. Nah, man, they'll be able to get the extractions done. And then it's a matter of law enforcement going through, pouring through, and putting the pieces together and being like, okay, well, here we got this, and we got that. You know what I'm saying? So they have all that shit extracted. What's going to be interesting in Allen is going to be the bond hearing. This isn't going to be your typical bond hearing, because, the defense is coming at him saying there should be no bond because of that shitty fucking, again, that the PCA is coming rearing its ugly head. Another reason why they wouldn't, if they had more evidence, they would have put it in.
Right.
The defense is saying, okay, well, based on that thing that you just presented to court,
yes,
my guy should be out on bond because like it doesn't
What
even,
is this?
there's no proof whatsoever that my guy did shit.
Right,
There's
right,
no
right.
like, because you need it to be probable, more probable than not that the guy committed the crime. There's two things that you need to prove on a PCA. It's a much lower level in terms of the burden than beyond a reasonable doubt.
Sure.
You've got probable cause is like, was there a crime committed? Obviously, we know that two girls were brutally murdered. The second thing that they have to show is the person that was arrested, is it probable that they are the person that committed the crimes? So that's the angle that they're going to be fighting this month. And they're going to have to put on evidence. So that thing, we're going to actually get some evidence because
this is going to be wild.
When's the bond hearing going to be?
I want to say the 16th. Kurt, if you're CM, tell us when it is, if you're still on. I think I want to say February 16th. I hope it's not the 13th because that would be the Monday after the Super Bowl.
Hard for the course with this case, though, just vague,
Yeah.
Confusing.
So Cold Truth wants to know, is the bond hearing different than the meaningful bond hearing?
It is and it isn't. Like, this is not your typical bond hearing. Like when I go into court, like when a client calls me up on a Friday night and says, "Oh, I just got picked up on X, Y, or Z charge," I know they're sitting in over the weekend and first thing Monday morning, they're getting in front of the judge. I'm having a bond hearing then. Your typical bond hearing is, look, my client's an upstanding citizen in the community. You know, they're church going, they have a family, they have a job, blah, 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 blah. You're just trying to create value. Like the image with the judge that this is a decent person. They're not, they're not a threat to the safety of the public, and they're not a flight risk. So you're trying to establish those things. So they set a low bond. In this one, this is going to be gloves off. I think the judge carved out the whole day for this thing. This is going to be full blown hearing and very unlike most bond hearings. Like I've never handled a bond hearing where it was going to be as intense as I think this one's going to be, because the state is on the clock. They are the ones who have to meet the burden.
Sure.
They have to, if the state doesn't think that, the evidence that they presented in the affidavit is strong enough, they're going to have to give more, and that's where we may see what they've come up with post arrest. So it'll be very interesting, man.
Jeez.
We'll see. That's a big
Mark the day. Yeah.
Now, are you still believing that Kagan and Klein had nothing to do with this, or do you think?
I don't know, man. Like that fucking guy. I don't know. I think the guy's a super creep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if it turns out that Allen's a super creep, then yeah, I mean, I think it's not beyond the scope of reason that Keegan Klein's involved at all. I mean, small community. They're right next to each other. Creeps find creeps, it seems like, so that's one of those things. Maybe, like, I'm certainly not ruling it out.
Yeah, the only thing that's for me is just weird that Kagan had looked up the address of that gas station the day of the murders. That's less than a mile from that guy's house, which why would he need that address? See,
here's my thing, man. Like, so when and I say Allen, but that dude in Idaho, I just don't fucking say his name because I can tell he wants to be in.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I can see it in his face. So I refuse to say his shit. But that cat, like, as soon as he got arrested, I just want you to try to compare and contrast. Think about how much shit started coming out about that guy. People coming out of the woodwork, and we're talking. Delphi is a very high profile case. So when Allen gets arrested, I didn't hear shit.
Right.
Good or bad. Like, I didn't hear people, like, I heard some bullshit about when he worked at Walmart that he, was mean to a girl one time. And then somebody was like, "Oh, that's bullshit." But, like, I'm not hearing people coming out with stories about this guy, which speaks volumes, because I'm going to tell you right now, I don't give a shit. Every creep, no matter if they're able to walk around and walk amongst us, they're still fucking creeps because they have to be doing their shit at some point.
Right.
So somebody knows. Like Carol Gacy, when Carol was married to Gacy, she knew he was out in the garage at 3 and 4 in the fucking morning. That was willful blindness. She knew that he was a fucking creep.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like all these guys, BTK, all the guys that everyone thinks were normal, they couldn't have been that normal. We know that they weren't doing normal things because there were periods of time where they were ghosting. because they were out killing people,
Right.
and then disposing of the bodies and then covering their tracks. So, you know, I mean, like those things are just things that you would hear about, you would think from somebody. Now, you could make the argument, look, his wife, you know, she's towing the line. I'm not buying it, man. Like, they better come up with some strong evidence. Like I look at that guy and he looks horrified.
Yeah, he does.
He does not have the steely, like, I don't give a fuck look. I'm a fucking you know, like I looked at him right in the eyes. He looked like terrified to me.
Both his mug shots, he looks like, oh my God. He looks
right.
Scared.
He's like, what is going on? You know, so I don't know. I mean,
to be honest with you,
completely wrong. If they find the evidence, then, you know, I'll eat my words. But now, I'm not convinced.
Going back to you were saying you hadn't heard nothing good or nothing bad. I've heard two people say that they couldn't wait for Richard to wait on him because he said this guy was funny. He was very personable and we loved him, you know, and there was two people, they'd be in the drive-through and they go, man, I hope Richard's waiting on me today. And so I've heard nothing negative said about this guy.
Yeah. I mean, me either. That's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, as soon as dude in Idaho got busted, I'm hearing he's a heroin addict, and, you know, some girls, like I went on a Tinder date and he got touchy, you know, real handsy with me, you know, it's like, that was like instantaneous. So
you've been following that case really closely too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, why? Just because he's so interesting, or like, what's the?
Yeah,
it's an interesting case.
It's a fascinating.
He's an interesting character.
He walks into a sorority house and kills 4 girls and walks out.
Allegedly.
You're right.
Calm down. I just gave you guys like a big speech about that shit.
No, listen, I'm right there with you. Right,
you got to see the evidence, right? I mean, they're like people just need to understand when a probable cause affidavit comes out. That is just the state's interpretation of the evidence that they collected. Okay. That doesn't mean that it's factual. You know, that's why we have trials, so that you can test the evidence. Now, if you've got some smoking gun evidence, that sheath very well could be smoking gun evidence. It might be, you know, I mean, I don't know the quality of the DNA. I know they said it was a single source. That doesn't mean it's it could be partial, you know, like we just don't know yet. Like, we just don't know about that, you know, and it's like, so my pod is serialized, but we started doing the docket. So the docket is our, like, where we're handling current events and breaking cases. Cause frankly, it was driving me nuts. Like, I was sitting there going through my old cases, and I love doing my serialized stuff because I get to tell the stories, but like, I wanted to talk about current shit, you know, because I stay current. I dig into these cases, and, like, you know, a lot of my listeners were like, yo, man, we'd like to hear your input on this because we value your opinion. So that's why I started doing the docket. And the thing with the Idaho 4 is I did not join in on the speculation parade ever. Yeah. I waited until that PCA dropped. I did not post one thing ever about that case other than the fact that 4 kids had been killed in Idaho. At University of Idaho. That was all I said. Because I was disgusted by the shit that was going on online. Like, these web sleuths, they need to calm the fuck down. And they have to act with some kind of responsibility, because like, we are way too powerful in terms of our reach with what we're able to do these days. Yeah. So when you're out there puking misinformation and bad information and accusing innocent people of shit, it has, like, the hoodie guy at the grub truck. Yeah, they had him driving 5 hours to his parents' cabin and then flying to Africa because he's hiding. Seriously, dude. That was insane. Dude. I just couldn't I could not handle it. Sure. So like in my docket episode, you know, I go on, like, I give like a mission statement in the first 10 minutes. You guys should listen to it. It's episode 7. It's for all creators, and it's for everybody that is involved in true crime who figures that, you know, that they're a little bit of a web sleuth. And that is not to say that people cannot help in cases, because they can. We have powerful tools at our disposal.
Certainly.
But if you're going to do that, do it ethically. Make sure that you're vetting the information before you puke it out because you're trying to get likes and subscribers. Right. You know, It's dangerous.
It has a huge
fucks up-
influence.
It, dude, and I'm just telling you, like,
Well, people
it
flock to it.
influences
That's also-
investigations.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, well, and it's like this weird kind of weapon because people flock to it. So like more people are seeing that than the actual other.
Well, exactly, and people believe it.
Yes,
Yeah.
well,
Like, I mean, that's what's scary.
They want to believe it, right? Yeah,
exactly.
People
and remember,
love drama, man.
Yeah,
dude, and remember, those are like everybody is a potential juror. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, the entire world is hearing it, but also the people in that county are hearing the same shit, and it's just casting things in a completely incorrect light. You know, so yeah, I mean, we just need to be careful, man. Like, in terms of what
can I ask you about? Okay, so because again, we're interested in the case, you know, with when these things happen. So for this guy in Idaho, how would you defend this?
Okay, so
he says he's not guilty.
And let's say you've got DNA evidence. I mean, is that where you talk to your client and go, hey, we better make a plea deal?
No, fuck no.
Okay.
I don't do that until I see the evidence. I have to, again, man, that's their interpretation. That's their timeline. I don't know that that's when anything happened. You know what I'm saying? It's like, like I have to, like, number one, I'm going to test the DNA. I'm going to get my expert, Carl Reich, who's a fucking genius, like an amazing DNA guy. He was my DNA guy in Garcia. Like, Zellner's using my guy Reich for the Stephen Avery shit up there. The guy's fucking brilliant. And, you know, and I'm having him evaluate the DNA to see like what kind of sample it is and see if it is him, you know, and if it is him, then I've got a different situation. But in terms of, I defended it a little bit on my last episode of the docket. I'm like, okay, this is how I'd attack it just based on the information I have right now. I start with the timeline. All right. That timeline, they've really created a very, very narrow window. And when I say they, I'm talking about the state in which these 4 brutal homicides could have occurred, you know? So they've got dude back in a car at 4:20. All right. So that's their end time. Like, where they come up with this, like this time frame from from 4 o'clock to 4:25 is insane. Like, I don't know where they're coming up with that. Right. We know he's back in the car at 4:20 if he ever left the car.
Well, I think they're going by the 4 o'clock thing, aren't they? Because Xana had ordered food.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. That's like, they know this guy's driving around like starting at 4:04. You understand?
Yeah.
Still, they see the white Elantra at 4:04 going up and down Queen Road, you know, like, and like when you start reading the affidavit, and of course I'm parsing it probably a little more closely than most, but you know, there's errors. It's fraught with errors. They keep talking about he goes eastbound on King Road. Well, King Road only runs north and south. It's like all you need to do is a Google map search to see that. So like you start seeing the warts on that PCA, but you know that he drives back starting at 404 was when they first catch him on video. Okay. And they know that he goes down Queen Road, goes down to 500 Queen, turns around, goes back, stops in front of 1122. They say he's either trying to park or trying to turn around. He doesn't do it, heads back to King Road, does a 3-point turn, heads back down Queen Road, and then they lose him. All right. So just like, let's call that 5 minutes. Okay. And then he's going to park. Okay. And then he's going to walk up through the back, get into the slider. So I'm calling that 4:10, 4:11. That's when the killing starts. So I'm giving it 9 minutes to get upstairs. If both girls are sleeping, maybe it's not too difficult in terms of, you know, he goes up there and does what he's going to do, comes downstairs. We know Xana's awake. We know that like you like, to answer your question as I attack the timeline, the whole DM thing, man, is going to be a fucking nightmare for the prosecution. Like, her whole statement makes no sense. It's like, you know, they initially released that there were 2 survivors. Everyone's like, how were there 2 survivors? Why didn't he kill the other girls? Well, there's a bunch of reasons that could be, but the fact of the matter is when they first made the statement, and I'm talking about law enforcement, they said they were both on the first floor. That's what we all thought. Like, that is what they said. They released it that both girls were on the first floor and they were unharmed, and that's it. And so at that point, when the PCA comes out and now we have her on the second floor, and then we have her, you know, hearing she gets woken up by Kaylee at 4 o'clock from what she thinks is Kaylee and the dog. Okay. And then we have, she hears the crying and she opens the door, or no, she hears Kaylee or Xana, whichever one it was, say there's someone here. So then she goes, peeks out the door, doesn't see anybody. And then, and then we've got, she hears Xana crying. So she opens the door again, doesn't go out, doesn't go see if Xana's okay. She probably assumes that it's, Ethan and Xana having a beef, shuts the door. And this is like 4 a.m., which for normal people seems like an obscene, time to be up. But for college kids, it's par for the course, man. They're like, and it's a rager house. So, So then you've got, she opens the door a third time, and that's when she says she opens the door because she hears crying. I don't know if she hears crying again or still. And that's a big distinction we need to figure out, because when she opens the door because she hears crying, that means when she sees dude walking by, that means that he's left a person alive. If she's still crying when he's walking past her, that means that now that doesn't mean that she can't be bleeding out, and she can be, and we don't know what the injuries were. I just know from my experience and what I do, if you sever the vocal cords, no one's crying. You're not going to hear any audible noises. You can't do it because they've been cut. The cord, you're not going to get the reverb in there. So, and you attack that, and the fact that they throw in that this camera 50 feet away on a different building hears a whimper, a thud, and a dog bark, but the girl on the second floor in the house, which apparently she can hear everything, doesn't hear jack shit, is problematic. It's like they stuck that. So, I mean, you pick the timeline apart, man. That's what you do.
It's very interesting.
I mean, it's gonna be a thing. I'll tell you, it's gonna be.
Yeah, definitely.
And we don't know what evidence they have. I mean, what happens if dude says, well, Xana was my dealer and I needed a fix? Because it's out there. The guy was an addict. He was a heroin addict. He may have switched to meth. He may have switched to blow. I don't know, whatever the case may be. But I can assure you they're going to have a reason why he was over there. Oh, yeah, Xana was my dealer. And, she kept the slider open. She was still open. I was just coming over to pick something up real quick. I got, I got in the house and they were all fucking dead. I freaked out. I'm assuming that they would think it was me. So I just left and I didn't fucking call the police because of course they would think it was me, so then you're left dealing with the shit.
That's really interesting.
That's a great defense, because then you could say, that's why I didn't kill the girls on the bottom.
Exactly. Because they were already dead. I just ran, dude. It's like, it's going to have to be what Murdoch is saying too. Like they got him
with that, man,
dude. They got him. Like today was a very good day.
Bad day for him, huh?
Bad day. Bad day. It's like they basically got him on the grounds, by the kennel, and they're going to have to do the same thing. They're going to have to change the timeline. If it's in that timeline, it's tough for him. If it's not that timeline, meaning if if the defense can convince the jury that it took place after 9/06 when he's known to be gone, then, no matter what he said beforehand, doesn't really matter, because he could have been like, well, half my family was just slaughtered. I gave a statement I fucking didn't remember. Or I flat out lied because I knew that you were going to be thinking it was me that did it.
Yeah.
And if I admitted that I was in that area, then you would have fucking arrested me right then and there. I mean, there's viable reasons why he would not be truthful about that don't necessarily mean that he did it.
Right.
But
still bad.
It's still bad, because selling that to the jury is fucking tough. But you have to think about it realistically, man. If that same situation, God forbid, imagine you came home, same shit. You discovered your family members, and you're the first fucking person.
Dude, the movie The Fugitive, great movie. Harrison Ford.
Exactly.
I mean, basically, essentially the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And dude, the fact of the matter is, the spouse is the first guy they look at.
Always.
And what? Oh, I walked in and they're dead. Dude, that's always the case. So,
and I own 4,000 guns.
Right?
Did you see his gun cabinet? It's insane,
dude. They're, you guys are in Oklahoma. You guys,
yeah.
All some gun-toting motherfuckers down there.
Easy. I hear redneck coming out now.
No way.
I was even looking at that thing though and being like, well, of course there's going to be spent casings outside. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Dude, he has like, but I mean, you think he did it?
Which guy?
Alex.
Murdaugh?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean, I got to hear the defense.
I know.
To me, like the motive just isn't there. Like, why?
I agree.
Like, how does him killing his wife and son do anything to stop what is happening with the financial shit?
Yeah. Like that was my thing is that's not gonna stop your financial troubles from going away. Right. Like that's not really the answer. I mean, was he gonna get arrested for the stuff he was doing with the law firm?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Oops, sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, definitely. Like he was going down.
Yeah. Once that train's rolling, it ain't stopping just because you're having an unfortunate
the bigger
family
question is like how much of that are they going to be able to get in at this trial? You know, because theoretically, you know, there's like a group of true crime, you know, connoisseurs that are familiar with every facet of this case. There's some that don't know jack shit about it.
Right.
And in theory, this jury doesn't know jack shit about it. I mean, you hope, you know, it's like, I don't know if they're listening to Manny Matney's fucking podcast or not. You know, I mean, she's been convicting this dude for years, you know? So it's like, if you've got blank canvas jurors who don't have any background, like that's why you fight so hard to keep the prior bad acts, like the financial shit, out. You know, that's why I think it's just a backdoor move by the prosecutor so they can get those prior bad acts, like hanging that motive on him. You know what I'm saying? So they're saying, it goes to our motive. That's why it's relevant. So we have to be able to get that shit in because it's always a propensity argument. Like if you're trying to get prior bad acts in, it's got to be something that shows that they have a propensity to commit the type of crime that they're currently charged with.
Just saw this on the movie The Verdict, Paul Newman. Not sure if you've ever seen it. Great movie.
Dude, one of my favorites.
Dude, I just stumbled across it like last week. Fucking loved it.
Yeah, dude.
The Verdict.
That was the first time?
Yes.
Oh my God.
You know, I'm much younger than all you guys, so hey.
I mean, dude, like the fucking
it's an amazing movie though.
Dude, the nurse, who are these men?
Yes, that's perfect.
So fucking great, dude.
But they're always trying. Yeah, they're always trying to keep stuff out, though, right? They're always trying to
dude. Right. It's like you think he's got him nailed, and then they fucking find a back door to.
Right.
But the jury saw the truth, and
but that makes sense with this case, though. I get what you're saying. That's a sly move by the prosecution,
right?
To use that as a motive to tie it in.
Exactly. In order to get that shit in, right?
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, yeah, that's how.
So, Bob, have you ever had I mean, we talked a little bit about this, but have you ever had a client that you were going, this guy's so fucking guilty, man, I don't know how the hell I'm going to.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, do you leave it up to him? Do you want to go to trial? Do you want to do a plea deal, or how does that work?
I have to leave it up to them. So there's three things that defendants have a constitutional absolute right to dictate in terms of their cases. And it's one, if they want to plead guilty or innocent; two, if they want a bench trial or a jury trial; and three, if they want to testify on their own behalf. Those three things are out of my control. Whatever my client says in terms of, so the pleading guilty or not guilty is what dictates trial. Now, what I do is I sit down with my clients because, as you can tell, I'm a straight talking, you know, like I don't mince words.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. I sit there with my client across from the table and I open the file and I say, okay, this is the state's evidence. We've got a serious fucking problem here. Like this isn't magic time. You're like, I may be silver tongued, but you know what? Like there's no getting over this evidence.
Guy. Yeah.
Right. So, you know,
that's
like the fact that, those types of guys, you know, basically I'm able to say, look, man, I'm a fighter. If there was any way that I thought that we could beat this at trial, we're going. I'm just telling you flat out, we're not going to win this. And you're going to pay a bigger price if we go to trial and lose, because you're going to pay a trial tax. You're going to get a longer sentence than the state is offering you. So that's, you know, and like I said, man, most of the cases when the cops do their shit straight up, most criminals are not smart. You know, they fuck up, they leave evidence. That's just the facts. So typically, you know, when they get a guy, they get the right guy, you know, and obviously there's exceptions to that rule clearly, but you know, for the most part, like I said, you know, it's in the 90s, like how often they get the right guy, just because, not because of like necessarily amazing police work, just because criminals are fucking stupid, because again, they're humans.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like,
Sure.
you could come up with some kind of master plan on how to do the perfect crime, but it's a whole different thing to actually do it. Like when the heat is on and that you're feeling the pressure, and like, I mean, dude may have like, you know, Idaho dude may have been planning this shit for 3 years, and this stupid fucking ass left the sheath in the bed of Maddie.
Leaves his phone.
There you go.
Leaves the sheath.
Criminology PhD, my ass. I'm like,
that's what I always brought that up. You know, when we cover cases, I was always trying to remind people, you know, it's very difficult to like.
Oh, and especially today. I mean, you've got a security camera in every corner.
Well, even physically sometimes.
Well, you remember
like,
I told you I watched it was maybe 2 months ago where this guy had abducted a girl or something, and basically they went to the cameras of each corner. They followed this car and then followed it, saw it turn down the street. They find the car. The rest is made. You know, so it's like you can't commit a crime anymore. I mean,
plus we all have these things. Like,
yes,
trackers. Kidding me? These things, like all that shit are you talking about is like, yeah, that's super helpful to law enforcement. But this fucking thing, like if you're a criminal and you have one of these, you are an idiot.
Yeah,
it has everything. It has your movements. If you turn it off, it's suspicious. If it's not with you, it's suspicious.
Well, in the Murdo case, with the screen, you know, changing and unlocking,
the orientation change. I mean, everything, man.
Well, they're assuming that means that he was trying to get her face to unlock the phone, but there's a lot of assuming there. There's a rule. But all the jury needs to hear is that, you know.
Dude, you plant the seed. That's all you have to do. You plant the seed in the jury's mind, and there it is, man. So yeah, like, you know, if you're carrying your phone and you're into a life of crime, you're not going to be out on these streets for very long. You're going to be back in DOC pretty soon.
You talk about, you know, a lot of these criminals are dumb, right, and things like that. So what happens when you have an Anthony Garcia that, I mean,
well, he wasn't.
Well, obviously isn't dumb, but I'm saying, you know what I mean, because he's somehow slithered his way into practicing medicine.
Yeah,
would you like to defend this guy?
Yeah, made bad grades.
Well, I can tell you definitively that client never said anything other than I didn't do this. You know what I mean? So it's like when I have a client, and then when I dig into the evidence, and if you guys are listening to that season, and you guys have a long fucking way to go, because I'm on episode 32. Like
I'm way behind, but I got to ask you this though. Okay, so when you're alone with Anthony and you're talking to him, and what we see in the court where he's acting like he's sleeping and he's not responding, was he like that with you during the interviews, or was he a normal acting person, or was he crazy, or was this an act, or what?
No, so they had my client in solitary 23 hours a day from the day they put him in Douglas County for 3 years. I challenged my client's competency twice because he was losing his shit. Like he had no human contact.
You would.
They were fucking torturing him in there. And when I say torture, like they weren't letting him sleep. They were doing all the shit that cops can do in there for public enemy number one. And believe me, he was that in their eyes. So like the guy just lost his shit. So like a year in, like in order just to get him out of the Douglas County jail, because we filed motions, like you have to get this guy out of solitary. He's losing his fucking mind. And you know he is. You know, and the judge is like, well, you know, their argument was that he had worked in a prison as a prison doctor. So he had, you know, intricate details on how he could potentially escape. Like that was their story.
Right.
And then after I started the Gacy season, I had a nurse from the jail, from the Douglas County jail, message us and say that they were the person that was shooting him up with, they were tranquilizing my client.
Oh, wow.
And rolling them out there, which obviously, so, you know, we challenged his competency before trial started. I told the judge, I said, my client hasn't spoken a word to me in 6 months, you know, and they thought that he was malingering. They thought he was faking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, faking? I'm like, let me stick you in jail and I'm talking in a cell 23 hours a day, no human contact for 3 years. and let me see how you come out the other end.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah,
So,
that's insane.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, he was a pathologist, but they're all weird. Like, and if you're like pathologists are just kind of like a strange breed, you know, and they're tinkering with the dead for a living, and they enjoy it. They find it fascinating. So they're strange, you know, they're different than most of us. I mean, it takes a special person to want to be a pathologist.
Right, for sure.
You know, like when you hear how Bill Hunter calls in the 911 call when he has the most horrific thing that you could ever discover, which is your son has been killed. He has no affect in his voice. You know, like me, I'd be hysterical.
Right.
I'd be like a puddle, you know? So, cause when I first heard that 911 call, I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, did this guy do it? Of course I realized quickly that, you know, that's absurd, you know, but at that point, and mostly because I know his whereabouts, you know, but I was like, it was so off-putting to hear just how he was responding. But then like person after person, when I'm going through all the discovery and I'm learning about these people in the pathology department, it's just kind of par for the course. They're strange. So I never took that in consideration. What I looked at, gentlemen, was the evidence. And as I sit here today, I am not convinced that I know he was convicted, but I'm telling you, I am not convinced that they have the right guy. And that's based on forensic science. Because their case was like, you have 2 crime scenes, and I hate to be a spoiler to my podcast, but there was 0 forensic evidence. No DNA, no fibers, no blood, nothing connecting to either of those 2 crime scenes. Nothing. They had mere presence in the state, and it wasn't even as good as like Murdaugh, like where they don't even have him at the property. You know, they have him in Omaha. And that was enough for them, you know? So yeah, it's you know, so yeah. In that type of case, if I got a guy who's saying he's innocent and they're trying to put him to death, I'm taking that fucking case to the mat. Like I'm gonna be able to put my head down, like, and they hated us and we got tortured on that case. I don't give a shit. You know, I'm not out there to make friends. I'm not out there, you know, it's like, you know, they attacked us in every way possible. They got Allison booted off the case on total bullshit. Like total bullshit, like saying that she was harassing their star witness who was a stripper that we had contacted in order to interview. And it was like, you guys come up with this chick like out of the blue after he's arrested, after the story's out there. And she's now saying that he confessed to her. And like we talked to her, she's like, well, you know, I was on meth and I wouldn't trust anything I said back then, you know? So we're like, okay, well, we need an affidavit to that effect. And so we send our PI out there and that was it, you know, and then they go and find. They wanted Allison off that case because Allison's a fucking pit bull. Like we were papering them to death and we were losing every motion. Like that case should never have been tried in Douglas County ever. Like they did the right thing in Delphi. Like people are like confused that, you know, even though the trial's happening in Delphi, the change of venue was granted. They're just importing the jury from there. So instead of dragging all the staff, all the lawyers, the judge, everybody out to Allen County, they're just going out there, they're picking the jury there, and then they're going to sequester them probably in Lafayette, West Lafayette, you know? So it's like that change of venue was granted. And in Douglas County, man, we were stuck and they tried my guy in the press for 3 years. It was insane. Like that whole case was insane. Like, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm in the beginning of it, and I did watch a few videos. I saw you interviewed several times, which is cool, or by some news people.
Oh, Garcia?
Yeah. And but man, it's like I have to admit, you know, I thought the guy was faking, but after hearing what you basically saw a slow mental decline because this poor guy was stuck in a freaking hole for 23 hours a day.
3 years.
Lord.
And
anybody go nuts.
They were shooting him up with tranquilizers before they wheeled him out. Dude, like, cause I want to try to explain to you that like for him to be malingering or faking and to go through a trial like that, not to say one word to me, my father, or the local council is either the greatest display of willpower
for sure
in the history of mankind, because typically you can't get a defendant to shut the fuck up. Like I'm like, dude, I need to hear that. I need to hear this witness on the stand and they're yapping in my ear. And I'm like, dude, write it down. This guy didn't say one word during a 5-week trial. There was no faking in it, man. You know, and it's like, he's sitting there like this. The jury thinks he's sleeping. And then I couldn't bring out the fact of why he was appearing that way to the jury. So now you have a jury that's looking at this guy who appears to be sleeping through his death penalty case.
Right.
Yeah.
What if you're a juror? What are you thinking? You're like,
Right,
oh my God,
sure.
fuck this guy.
No remorse.
Like this
no
guy.
remorse.
No, right.
Yeah, like he
just
doesn't give a
sleeping
shit at
through.
all. So
Exactly.
I
Gives
told
zero
Keith
fucks.
earlier.
So, yeah.
It got to the point where, like, and I'm not saying this in a joking way, but he literally looked like
Ted
Saddam.
Kaczynski.
No, Hussein.
Yeah, he did.
I was gonna say Saddam Hussein after he got out of the hole.
Either, man, he looked like the Unabomber dude with the beard.
Yeah, he did.
crazy,
No, I
and
see
it
that.
was
Yeah,
like-
just wild.
It was not good. And by the time they got to the by the time they got to the sentencing, I was out of it at that point. Like I had withdrawn from the case. But he was like, he was just gone, man.
Right.
But like now I've heard through the grapevine that, he's not in solitary and he's kind of snapped back to being normal.
Whoa.
does he have a chance of appeal or anything? Or
Well, they filed the appeal.
Yeah.
Of course, they attacked
Okay.
the shit out of us. They called us like a nightmare. They're like, oh, they called themselves Team Motta. I'm like, no, we didn't. The judge in the first fucking hearing said it was me, my wife, and my dad. He dubbed us Team Motta. It wasn't some self-proclaimed
Right.
shit.
Right.
They cast us in that light, and they're like, Team Motta was a nightmare. Well, if a nightmare means that you're trying to kill my client and I'm making you prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, I'll take
Right.
that. I'll take
Right,
that.
yeah, yeah.
I'll fall on that sword. I don't give a shit. It's like that's how I can sleep at night. I know that I laid it all on the line, and I'm like I said, I wasn't out there to make friends. I was out there to defend this guy and make sure that I put the state to the test. And like I said, I sit here and I still don't know. And that's
Right.
And I, like in my pod, I'm not standing on my soapbox, claiming
sure.
my guy's innocent. I'm putting all the evidence out there, and I'm
Right.
letting because no one's heard the defense except for the people that were in the courtroom.
Right.
Because like the newspaper wasn't reporting it. It was
Yeah.
Todd Cooper was a state lackey. He was getting leaked information. He was the reporter for the World Herald, and he had a pipeline to the state's attorney's office. Like he had shit in the paper that there's no way he should have known. Way
Definitely.
before trial, just planting the seeds of guilt within that entire community. But I'm gonna lay it out there with all the evidence and let the people.
Right.
And if the people are like, I think he did it. That's their, fine. That's their
Right.
prerogative.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
All I could do is lay out all the evidence, but I'm anxious to get to that day though. So we'll see how it plays out.
Well, and just, for perspective for somebody in your line of work, what an incredible experience though.
Oh, dude, it was
yeah.
I'm
exhausting.
sure.
For 3 years, we handled
Yeah.
that case for 3 years. We had to shut basically every other aspect of our practice down because that case took we moved to Omaha for 4 months.
Right.
I had to leave my kids behind. Thankfully, frankly, Allison got kicked off the case because I don't know what we were going to do.
Right.
We both had to go out there and try that case and leave our, at that point, young kids. I think we were going to get Allison's mom to fly in from Pennsylvania to caregive for 2 months. It was
insane.
it was a dude like that. And on top of just the mental, because there is no experience trying a case like that because everything else falls away from your mind. Everything. You would talk about tunnel vision. You're it's the only thing you can think about. From the minute you wake up to the minute you asleep, you're dreaming about it. You're waking up. Oh my God, I've got to write the closing argument for this case. This guy's life is in my hands.
Right.
I mean, it's there is no harder job. I don't give a shit. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
physical labor type, manual labor type things are different. In terms of mental,
Yeah.
and just the stress level, because you're defending someone's life in some cases, and freedom, the two things that we value most, and it's on your shoulders. That's just a huge amount of pressure.
And not to mention, although it's supposed to be a balanced, scenario, at the end of the day, the cards are always going to be against the defense.
Totally.
Right? Yeah,
Totally.
it's just you're playing an unfair game. Essentially, you're
Totally. Well,
running
you know,
uphill.
100%, dude. I mean, the state's got all the resources.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
I mean, the
definitely.
prosecutors have an army of
Well, even
policemen.
like the newspapers, like you're saying, the media, ability to leak things out to trusted sources.
Totally, dude.
Because they're both making a career off of it, right?
100%.
Like,
You know, and like the ironic thing is the press is supposed to be unbiased.
yeah,
You know, and it's like at some point that just like slipped away. You know, it
Yeah.
vanished. You know, it's like there was one reporter named Jake out there that I befriended because he was the only guy that was like being objective about the case instead of jumping on and, you know, like he came out to Chicago and like actually was interested in the defense side of it and to see what we were, you know, cooking up. And, you know, so that was like out of the entire city of Omaha, Jake was the only cat that was worth the shit.
Yeah.
So, you know, but it was it was a really tough case, gentlemen. Like I had to take off like a month and a half after just to mentally recover.
Well, I always thought, how do you guys, I mean, because even after the, you know, courts in recess or whenever they end it, you're probably going home and not getting any sleep. I mean, going back to the hotel or whatever, then you got to put the plan together for tomorrow or whatever. I mean,
dude,
it's like 2 hours of sleep a day,
if that, you know, and it's like in a case like that. So we had 3 lawyers and I had 2 associates that were helping us, like, you know, put information together and put, you know, questions together in terms of witnesses. Cause their witness list, I think, was 130 witnesses. And they would not give us the courtesy of telling us who they were going to call. So I need you to try to like understand, like there was no like, oh, we're going to call X, Y, and Z tomorrow. So prepare for those guys.
Really?
It was like, oh, we're going to, yeah, dude, it was all dirty pool. The whole fucking thing was dirty pool. You know, so I'm having to sit there and try to guess who I have to prepare for cross-examination.
Well, and isn't that a tactic too? And a way to overwhelm the defense?
Sure it is.
Totally.
Yeah, just unlimited bombardment of witnesses and information. And
it's good. It didn't give them any time to prepare.
Right.
You know? That's insane. Okay, one question I've always wanted to ask a defense attorney. So you're familiar with the Charles Manson trial, I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay, so the prosecution does their case. When the judge asks the defense to put on their case, they say the defense rests, Your Honor.
Right.
And would you ever do that in the case?
Here's the way it really goes. So typically what you do is if you don't think this, because remember, the state has the only burden. The defendant doesn't have to prove anything. Like, and when I say they don't have to prove anything, they don't. Now, the reality is that we do. It's you know, the concept of like the state has the burden. The way that it really plays out is people need to hear a defense, you know? So, but if I think that the state has not proven their case and their case in chief, what you hear is that there's a motion for what they call a directed finding, where you're telling the judge that you don't believe that the state met its burden and they've put their case on at that point. They're rarely granted. Sometimes you'll win on a couple of counts, but so no, there's rarely a case where I don't at least put one witness on, you know, in defense. You know, it's like, obviously they couldn't put Manson on. You know what I'm saying? It's like you got to look at like what you have available. You know, it's like sometimes you just don't have anything to put on.
And then in that
you know,
case,
and then you're just kind of left with, you hope the jury doesn't think that they prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. You know, I mean, because you don't have to put on defense. You can just rest your case. You know, I'm the defense rests, and let's see. I don't think they proved their shit. Still do a closing argument. You know what I'm saying? You're still arguing and you're picking apart their case. You know, I mean, there's just sometimes where you don't have a defense.
Well, and you're using the fact that you just rested the case as a tool in your closing argument. Like, I just rested the case because they don't have shit.
Exactly. Right. I don't think they proved their case. Hopefully the jury agrees.
Yeah.
I mean, even the DA Boyosi was like, "Hey, what do you mean you know, they had a big hearing in the judge's chamber about you got to defend your." Even Boyosi was saying, "You got to do something."
Yeah.
And they're like, "No, we're not going to." And
not going
of course,
to.
Manson was always saying, "Well, if you guys would have let us put a defense, we could have, you know, got off on those murders." You know, and it's like, "No, you couldn't. You had." There's too many witnesses pointing fingers at you, man. For sure.
For sure, dude. For sure.
Do you got anything else, buddy?
Man, I'm just like so grateful that Bob is willing to come on here and chat with us and inform us on so many awesome things.
It is. It's very, like I said, man, it's an honor having you on.
Dude, don't worry about that. Yeah, as you can tell, I have no problem filling time with talking.
Yeah. Well, no,
hey, there's nothing more fun talking about true crime. Or
I mean, I enjoy it. I enjoy it. Like I enjoy talking about it more than I do practicing law. So,
well, man, I think your perspective is just so fresh though, because it is like very rare you get to hear about what's happening on the back end of things, especially on the defense side.
Yeah.
And it really does put things into perspective about how unbalanced things really are. You know,
yeah, and it's nice to hear like when Bob says, even when someone's guilty, they still deserve a fair trial.
Right.
Well, they have to.
Yes.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about the victims getting justice and their families getting justice. And if you don't have a fair trial, the odds of that happening are slim. You know, I mean, everyone needs to know that like you need a good defense attorney, you need a good prosecutor, and you need a good, clean trial to take place so that people can feel comfortable. Because like victims' families, when the prosecutor and the police tell them, we got the guy, we got the right guy, they put all their faith into that.
Yes.
You know, they have no reason not to. And frankly, they're just assuming that they did their jobs right. You know what I'm saying? So like you got to have both sides coming to bat with like their best, their A game. And you know, at that point, everyone gets the benefit of it. Like, can you imagine having to go through a trial where your child was killed and you've got to get it retried because they
oh god, yeah,
right.
I mean, dude, it's not a good look, you know, and it's like beyond traumatic for a family. So, all right, so that's it, boys. I love you.
Love
you too, man.
Whenever you guys hit me up.
Absolutely.
Hey, be safe on your travels and definitely let's reconnect when you get back.
Yeah,
definily. All right, boys. Hey, studio looks great, by the way.
Thank you, man.
Good night, man.
Bye.
Take care.
Dude,
he's very cool, man.
Oh my god, he's so knowledgeable about it. Like it's just
and it's rare that you get, like you were saying earlier, kind of like getting defense opinion about something.
Like firsthand.
Right. You know, and not only that, he was on a big case and
a massive case.
Yeah, a massive case.
Well, he's just been around big cases though, even through like his
dad's
his
dad, got his history, you know, with his dad and everything is just, I mean, you know, John Wayne Gacy doesn't get bigger than that.
Right. In the true crime world. I mean, it's like,
and then having, you know, I don't know if you listen to any of the Gacy tapes he has. Yeah. They're, I mean, he's got stuff that no one's ever heard.
It's raw. I mean, that's what I'm
saying.
And
you can hear how, God, Gacy is so cocky, man.
Oh my God.
Through the whole thing.
Yes.
Like he thinks he's
so confident.
He's like, he's the smartest guy in the room.
Yes.
You know, and you can hear like his dad kind of arguing with him, you know, about something, pushing back a little bit. And, you know, Gacy
because it's his job to know so that he can best defend him.
Right.
But these guys are all psychopaths.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And they can't wrap their head around it.
Well, then he changed his whole thing was, something about a different personality was coming out and he wasn't aware.
Right.
You know, he would refer to that person like in
yes.
like a third person when he's talking about himself. But
what's crazy even about that is that he's doing all that, but he's conscious of the fact that he's doing it, Gacy, right?
Yeah.
That shows you how much of a lunatic he was.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of see that, like, it's interesting that he didn't want to talk about the Idaho. I mean, I get why.
Sure.
But you and I, we didn't even talk about the Idaho. We haven't done a show about it. Mostly because of that reasoning, right?
Yeah, and I saw a lot of, like, he brought up a good point. There were so many of these YouTube sleuths. I don't call us that because we just we interview. We don't go on and say this is what we interview people, and there were so many people like going, oh, it's the neighbor. Remember the neighbor?
Yes.
The neighbor's weird acting, you know, so therefore. Then they go on the neighbor, and then the guy at the food truck, and just like he said, man, that damages, you know, that starts influencing people. And something he brought up, and I didn't even think about when they pick a jury. So, what if your jurors have been watching a certain YouTube channel who has been trying to put a lot of faith in someone that's actually innocent?
Right. Well, look at Delphi situation.
Oh God!
I mean, that's what he's saying. They're going to have
how many people did did all the sleuths go through? That now, you know, we know probably
I think that's probably why we didn't like touch on the Idaho thing, though, is because we have learned so much through the Delphi situation, you know, but that's why it's so good to have access to, you know, Bob Motta and the Prosecutors Podcast. I saw somebody say, hey, do another panel with Bob and those guys, you know? And so, I think when these things come out, maybe we circle back around. I know Prosecutors Podcast can come on.
That's a great point, because I just, like I said, you know, like I was telling you before we even went on, we were talking, Garrett and I was talking about the Idaho case, and I said, you know, the main reason that really I didn't want to do anything because there is nothing to talk about. You know, the evidence we have was in the affidavit. And that's it.
Right.
We know this person has been arrested.
Right.
What else can we talk about?
Nothing.
There's nothing else. I mean, once, like he said, once the evidence comes out, then we can talk about the evidence and then make a little more speculation. But
even with this Delphi thing, the bond, that's going to be February 16th. That's going to be huge, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it is going to be huge, because that's when, like he said, they're going to start bringing out more evidence, why to keep him behind bars, why he's a dangerous person. And Bob's right, man. They're going to have to have. The defense is going
to be poking holes in all that and saying, no, this is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, something that he brought up was a good point is there's nothing been bad said. I mean, I'm not saying Richard Allen is innocent. I'm not saying that at all. But like he said, I haven't heard one person say anything negative about the guy, and I've only heard positive things. Now, again, like I said, I'm not saying he's innocent. He could have did it, but we need to, you know, it is as you know, when people watch people on YouTube, and like you know, we're just a couple of knuckleheads talking about crime, right? And most of these people, I'm sorry, but they're knuckleheads talking about crime.
Absolutely.
But they get sucked into that drama of trying to figure out a case, and they don't know how bad that they're damaging the case.
Right.
And if, you know, influencing people, and it's just
like, that's what we're saying. It's kind of like this compounding situation too, because, you know, unfortunately in today's society, people gravitate towards misinformation, and it's super prevalent, right?
And they want to. They get sucked into it.
Yeah. They get to be a part of something, right? That nobody else knows about.
That's why, and that's exactly the reason why, like, you know, some of the cases that, like the Murdaugh and all those other cases that came up, I thought, let's, you know what, all we have is speculation, and I don't want to start saying, well, I think this person did it or this person didn't do it. So it's much interesting to me to get someone like Bob on, or someone. So what we try to do is find someone who knows the case really well, and just interview them.
Absolutely, ask them
questions, and not point fingers at people, and that's the problem right now. And there's so many bad. I mean, and the thing is, you don't understand these YouTube followers who have 500,000 followers, and they're so careless, man. There's three I can think of right now, which I'm not going to mention their names, that were like on a couple of cases back, totally wrong. Kylie Rodney, that's one right there. Okay. You know, they were pointing fingers at all the kids. You know, I can tell the way, and I heard people say, I can tell the way she looks, she's lying. Like, no, you can't.
That's completely unfair. That is completely unfair.
I can't remember the girl, the blonde haired girl's name. You know, like I said, it's been a while, but they were blaming her. They were blaming the boyfriend.
Well, I think that, you know,
absolutely no evidence at all.
Well, I think that what's interesting about our show is, you know, we cover a lot of different things. It's not just true crime, right? But we're always kind of, there's a common theme that we're a bit concerned or interested or curious about the human condition, right? What makes somebody do something? What makes somebody
the psychological aspect of it?
Absolutely,
is very interesting.
From our NDEs to our paranormal to Bigfoot episodes to true crime. That's kind of always the thing, right? So like, that's what I was interested in with Bob is, man, he's been around Anthony Garcia. He's looking at the guy from Idaho. Like, his take on this stuff is so interesting, because whether he likes it or not, he's been really influenced by those experiences with these people. You know, so. And
he's a professional at what he does. And
fascinating.
He's an expert at what he does. So that's why it makes it good for us.
Hey, real quick. Make sure you like and subscribe. Next week, we're having Van's World podcast on. This guy is super interesting. Talk about UFOs, ghosts.
Hey, so we're doing paranormal next week.
Conspiracy theories. You name it. It's going to be a wild show. So make sure you guys come back.
Yep.
Every show we do is amazing. So
yeah, I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. We love you guys. Like I said, man, we couldn't do this without you, and it's so much fun. We do appreciate you taking your time out on Wednesday night to because you could be doing other things, and we don't take that lightly. I've said that before, and we do appreciate you watching. We really do. This channel's not monetized, so every once in a while Garrett and I will put up make a donation, but I don't run.
We like the way it moves.
I don't do the ad. yeah. I don't do that. I think I told you.
We like the way it looks.
Yeah, I don't do the ad thing, and we don't make any money off it. But I remember the first time I thought, well, we'll see what if we can generate a little income to just pay for some ink on the printer. And the money, and I went to one of our shows, and there was like 15 commercials through it, and I was like, God, this is horrible.
Hey, I wonder if Mona's yay ... is sarcastic because we're doing paranormal type stuff next week. She said yay.
I feel
like she said yay.
Yeah, I know. Mona's a true crime
Remember
person.
how we thought she was from England for like...
You kept saying tea and biscuits.
Yeah. Mona, I don't know. I love her. She's been forever.
We love you, Mona.
Thank you, Mona.
But again, thank you guys. And somebody, and I can't remember what their name is, and I apologize. You subbed today. That means a lot to us. Thank you so much. And we love you guys. We'll see you next week. And who are we having again?
Van's World.
Spell it.
VANS.
Van's World. Yep. And okay, that sounds great. All right, guys. Good night. We love you. We will see you next Wednesday.
Good night.